So on this video, I'm going to discuss the direct path, the no self, kind of what enlightenment is in a sense, and why it's so potent to where even aliens coming here, landing on the White House lawn, though it would be cool, interesting, among other things, to take in as an experience, it means nothing. It means nothing to spirit, to your spirituality, your connection to spirit, that nothing could happen or be said if you have that knowing, that direct experience, and you've integrated it to a certain extent, it could take you away from it, and everything else would just be just nothing in comparison. Whereas it's like, if someone without that direct experience or the enlightenment, they are easily pulled in other directions, away from that direct knowing, away from self, away from that, you can say, internal presence, primal presence, field of consciousness, which originally, for many, will be kind of like explosive, and you'll feel a level of like unconditional love that is just beyond words. You'll realize how like all of this is you, you are it, and it's all been created for you, and there's just like an immense intuitive knowing that it's amazing and that it's been done for you, and there's just like this level of love. At least that's how we experience it. It's obviously beyond that and whatnot, but that's kind of how it feels. And you have love for it, and it has love for you, and you feel that, you know that. But without that knowing and that experience and the journey and practices to integrate that and to parse yourself out in the ego, etc. Like I said, you're easily able to be pulled into other people's worlds, whether it be the people that are in the plant medicine community that worship, psychedelics, call it Mother Aya, give it a spirit, feminine nature, and then apply that to Mother Nature and Gaia, etc. Continuing to fracture and fractal the self into other things, which there is like a quality there that is palatable as far as nature and calling it Mother Nature and the feel, and it's but it's all one thing, it's all one happening, it's all one consciousness, it's all one enlightenment. There is no being, but there is a dimension beyond this one that still is also this one. It's the paradox, right? It's the cosmic joke and paradox, where all things arise and go back to where all these things come from. So I think at times there are levels to this in the spiritual world or shamanic realm, etc., where these things do seem to take on a separate consciousness of its own. But that's, to me, that's more of it's a kind of like a necessary dance and smoke and mirrors and play theater for us and for those that are dipping their toes into that realm where they need a sense of separation to get maybe some insight in these like kind of subtle interactions or not so subtle interactions that lend people to maybe have a deeper understanding of their self and where they're coming from and spirit, etc. And then, these things are given autonomy and names, and it's this spirit, it's that spirit, we're channeling this, we're channeling that, when really there's only one channel, man, and it's God. It's not the religious God, though it is in a sense that there's those who knew this God that I speak of that created a language to try, though it's impossible, and they knew it was impossible, to convey this deeper knowing of self, of the direct experience. The direct path of enlightenment, the anointment, samadhi, all these different ways of expressing what it is and the state of being that is, right? But the ego and people only know separation, and it's very hard to not categorize things through separation and wanting to parse things out and or give validation to these things that seem to be separate from ourselves, right? And some of these things, if you were to try to take them away from someone by just telling them that they are an illusion in a sense, by holding on to them, it is slowing down your growth and projection or trajectory on your path, and that trajectory is being halted, and you're being stuck in a place where you're still in separation. And for many that might be totally fine, and I'm not saying that there's not a beauty to people that believe in Jesus, believe in Krishna, believe in these separate entities, right? Because you can still hold on to that and still somehow, integrate a cosmic connection, oneness, that it is you. But we still hold on to these things, these totems, and it's because we're still like children. It's like children that are holding on to their blankie or their stuffed animal. You don't want to let it go. And then there's part of you that, you think you've had this deep understanding or surrender to something, or that thing through that experience, whether it be a mystical experience, a traumatic event, a psychedelic journey, that these things they're valid, and therefore you must validate them. So you seeing past them, you seeing through them, you seeing the illusion, the smoke and mirrors that continues, that's not, in a way, allowing you to fully surrender as it, that you're truly transcending it all, and the attachment to these things, and even yourself, and the world. Because that's terrifying to the ego, and it feels like you're giving up yourself, your character, your beliefs, your guides, your spirits, your dead relatives, your ancestors, your past lives, like you're not honoring them or something like that. It's all ego. It's all, there's a level to it to where it's true, and we need to have certain level of reverence to certain things and honor the connections that we have to our individual past and the collective past. And for me, I've had that, but I've also, for the most part, it's more of a universal connection and understanding of these things and these people, whether it be from the Eastern philosophy to the Western, to the Nordic traditions, to the Hermetics, to Platonism, etc., etc., where I just feel a connection. It's just a connection. I don't have to say, well, that is me, that is from my ancestors, that is this, that is that. While there might be, there's some relevancy to that. I'm not saying get rid of all your character or who you think that you are. Just like I have an Italian heritage, and I come from an Italian neighborhood, and predominantly a family that is, had Italian traditions of family, etc. So there's things that are there that I still appreciate, and I still appreciate things that come with tradition and things like that, just as the human experience, what it is to be us, and the diversity of that and everything else. So I'm not at all denying that. I'm just saying there's a plane, there's a space, there's a experience, there's a level of consciousness, there's a level of awakening that is beyond that is just transcendent of all of it, that is just, it is the highest form, it's not the be-all, end-all, but it, kind of is on the journey, even though the journey continues, the integration continues, the depth of the understanding continues, the wisdom that you gain from this, and the practices, and releasing attachment, and ego purification, and then also the intimate connection to all things, which includes nature and people and everything else. It is expansive, it gets deeper, but you feel yourself as it, you don't, there's times where you do not feel the separation, and it's amazing. I still have that at times, but it's not so much, I guess I'm used to it. It's just kind of like anything else, exposure therapy or whatever. You just kind of get exposed to it so much to where it's not, you're not the wide-eyed kid anymore. But, you still hold on to your childlike wonder and your playfulness and shit like that. Just like right now, I'm talking to you, whoever that you is, but I'm also experiencing nature. I'm also experiencing my hammock. I'm also seeing how I've evolved and woke up in this life, and that I am a part of a grand awakening, and that I'm not just the only one, obviously, and that I'm somewhat kind of on the backs of giants. And even though my personal awakening is definitely my personal awakening, what I know is through myself, through direct experience. It's not just me picking up something that someone told me. But I digress. I'm feeling and seeing these connections, and then I'm seeing the nature, and I'm talking to you, and there's this device in my hand, and there's this earbud in my ear, and then there's this plane that's flying above me, and it's all connected, it's all part of this evolutionary thing. And there's this more primal nature of flow with the things that are of nature that is here, the animals and insects and the plants, and it's just natural environment. And then these things that are man-made, and it's still in a form of nature, and it's still a form of being organic. But there also are things about it that is also, it feels inorganic, it feels synthetic, because it's not necessarily coming through the pure flow or form of our being, our spirit. It's being tainted and corrupted now, as it's always kind of has been, of the human condition, of like greed and all these things that create resentment and lack of understanding, lack of communication, and that then creates conflict and so on and so forth. Right. And it's all like a reflection of everything else. Just like the cosmos and the physics that operate that, and the functions are a mirror of the atomic level, right? Or the atoms and everything else. It's all a mirror. But you can like bask in that oneness, that connection. And it's a peace, and it's a surrender, it's a liberation. But it also allows you to now be a seer and a knower. And because you are like fully liberated in that space, and you have a further knowing of that space and of yourself, and that connection to God, that 3-letter word, that can only be known through me, as Jesus said. That me is you, so it's the same thing. I can't know it for you. You have to know it for yourself. And there's that knowing of that through yourself, that it can only be known through yourself, but can be in a way shared with others. That is the transcendent. And in that space, there's nothing that can take you away from it. There's nothing that can bind you down, because it is like this transcendent, all-encompassing thing. You can't pin it down. There's no pinning it down. Right? So it becomes a complete liberation of self. And if you're liberated of self, then none of these things really have power over you. So in that state, and when you really learn to appreciate that state, and it becomes this relationship, and then it's also just a flow, there's no necessarily thinking about it, it just is. When you are presented with things that test you, or test that, or whatnot, you just see through them, The aliens, for one, they are me. I am them. If they come here, I've just awakened at the right time, I guess, to be able to be awakened, to see through all the illusions. Not that I've seen through all of them, I'm just saying. And that these aliens, they better be aligned with kind of what I know, which I believe is the cosmic truth, and the inevitable evolution of consciousness. If they've advanced themselves to that point and they're coming here, that they too know this intrinsically, it's truly embedded already in their whole existence. It's not really something that they have to fucking talk about or pontificate about. It just is. And that they're operating in a way that is kind of malevolent to us, right? And if they were to come here now, I would almost think that it's because we have evolved to a certain point, that we can assimilate and accept this interaction, and whatever. Is it to save our species? Is it to bring us further along? Is it to bring us into the cosmic fold of the cosmic family, and start granting enlightenment, they're the real gurus that can touch your head and you know all things. That'd be cool. But I don't need that. But maybe the masses do. And in a way, maybe I do, and eventually, and blah, blah, blah. But it would just be more for the collective. It would just be more for the masses. And, I'm not going to get into a big crisis over it, you know what I mean? Because it's becoming in conflict with my worldview, and now it really is like, ego-shattering moment for people, and like how they view reality and their place in the world, and what makes sense, what the fuck even matters now, like, what society and politics and my job, and like, what the fuck, like that definitely is going to happen. And then people are going to cling to their Bibles and cling to their beliefs and their gods and their whatever, their tarot cards and their whatever, right? Like we'll like spiral into this like weird madness of like where the aliens become people's gods, and then where there's the people that are adamant about not letting the aliens become their gods, and they cling on to their gods and their spiritual beliefs and whatever else, and then there's like this conflict, and, you know what I mean? So I think in some ways like this whole concept of it is kind of like there for us, and for me, whatever, to kind of have that thought experiment, and like to kind of like see ourselves and like just see the limiting way of being, when you're not awake. And that if we are awake, like it would just eliminate all that like conflict and suffering and strife and anxiety. Right? So, I guess in a way of me like, talking about this is to emphasize the importance of the direct path, of this direct knowing, of continuing your ego purification, of continuing your journey of releasing attachment, and also like, just time of like releasing attachment to releasing attachment. It's like it's a paradox, so everything is paradoxical and contradictory on some level at some point, where you're just doing too much. But it's not an easy journey, even if like in a way enlightenment and truth is like the easiest thing you could do, because it's like complete surrender. There's no effort. It's effortless. But then like bringing that down into a way of being, existence as a human, like it is effort. It's taken effort for me to get here. It's taken effort for me to be able to have this framework, model about it. And, I'm telling you right now, if you're holding on to these things that I've mentioned, just start letting them go. Like you might think right now, like it's exciting, it's more connective to like play with your tarot cards or think about ancestors, and that you're releasing ancestral trauma, and where's your twin flame, and I'm here to raise the consciousness with my twin flame, and I'm a Pleiadian from this star system, and I remember Atlantis, like all this weird shit that you hear out there, right? And I say weird shit just because a lot of it is weird, and it's just people that are grasping for something, they want something, they want to believe in something, they want these things. It's not that they are, it's that they want them. Just like there's many people who want to be enlightened, so they believe that they've had or like an awakening experience, and like they haven't. You know, people think they want to talk about Kundalini awakenings and stuff, and they haven't. That's why, like, there's like cults and all this, like, spiritual communities that are just, you know, just rampant with shadow and narcissism and, you know, this parasitic nature about humans that just kind of just goes crazy. And like, we're all susceptible to it. Like, you know, I see it in myself still sometimes. You know, like, I'm still like a super like sexual guy with plenty of testosterone in me and stuff. And as much as I think I operate from a place of like integrity, you know, there's still times where like I see myself coming from ego. It's not like I'm saying that I do anything necessarily bad or anything. I'm just saying. So, you know, again, even like that stuff, the negatives in the spiritual community and all that, this direct path, it lifts you from all that. You know, you rise above it. You don't need it. You see in many cases, the lack of sophistication to it. And there's some, you know, communities where it's like, there's great people. You can find great people. They have a deep sense of spirit and their emotions, and they feel things deeply, and they have a metaphysical understanding, and they, you know, they understand like archetypal energies, and, you know, there's beautiful people. But so I'm not telling you to let go of everything, but I kind of am. It's so hard to try to convey, and I'm trying to just be authentic and in the flow right now, and not sound like, you know, just a typical spiritual guru teacher. But telling you, man, like, the more crazier it gets, like, aliens aside, like, society and the chaos of beliefs, ideology, you know, from abortion to spirituality. Gotta start purifying that ego, man, and just seeing the many traps and holes you get stuck in with your biases and cognitive dissonance and attachment to things because it validates things about your ego and where you're at on the journey. You know, like, I've done plenty of that, where I've held on to concepts or perceptions or things to validate my ego and to justify my ego and my place on my path and where I'm at, and, you know, this back and forth of nothing really matters, all is sacred, but at the same time nothing is sacred, like it's just another concept to release. And it is, in a sense. But that's the paradox. It's like holding on to the paradox, and like being able to hold on to it is hard as fuck, you know. And that's why, like, for myself, I have to discern myself, you know. Like, I've humbled myself out of my power many times. The imposter syndrome is strong. But I do. I have that ability to hold these paradoxes in my head, to see it. I'm not always good at it. I'm not always, you know, perfect about my perceptions or my delivery, but I try to fine-tune that, and I think I'm doing okay. Because there is no okay, there is no not okay. It just is. But at the same time, there's still that feeling of purpose. There's still that feeling of a karmic cycle, even though you can rise above the karmic cycle. But it's still there, right? Like you can see that you're not necessarily bound by it, but it's there. So it's kind of like, well, what do you do with it? You know, I have a son. I definitely have a karmic connection with my son. I have a large family that I love. You know, I've been in the space where like I love everyone. You know, and you know, that can get a little too much. People go a little overboard with that one too. But you know, there's these spaces you get into. You just see everyone as yourself, and then the suffering egos of the world. And it's, you know, I've cried like I've never cried before about people I don't even know. Just like the whole of it, the whole totality of it. It's like it's not even people. It's not even a separateness. It's as a whole. It could be pretty fucked up out there. But there's also a lot of beauty, and we need to hold on to that, because I have a feeling we're going to be going through some pretty rough, weird times. And there's going to be kind of like a splitting, you know, of worlds here. Whatever that looks like. Who knows? Maybe we're the ones becoming the cyborgs, you know. And we can get into some weird spiritual stuff where, you know, it's the light and dark energies at play, and there's subtle natures of manipulating this realm of, like, you know, where are we going, you know, are we diverging to this or that, or I don't think it's that. I mean, it kind of is, right? Like the battle of light and dark existed in the beginning of the cosmos, and you can say that it's all as above, so below, blah, 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 within the spirit realm and the hierarchies, blah, blah, blah. It just gets chaotic. At a certain point, you just gotta let all that shit go. Because it's just all part of the play. It's all part of the smoke and mirrors of contrast for us to discern, right? To know good, you have to know this perceived evil. To have gratitude, you have to know what it is to go without, or to be in a state of suffering and in a state of bliss. The duality, the contrast. Yin and yang, blah, blah, blah. So, I've just been ranting, speaking off the cuff, off my heart, off my mind. I hope I made sense to some. I hope I have been a mirror to some. I hope you can see me and you as I see you and me. Even though at times it's hard for me to do that, I still think some people are motherfuckers. And in some ways, like, we have to call them out, right? There's a battle. There's nothing wrong with going to war. It's just how clear are you on your intentions and messaging and everything else. We gotta hold on to our enlightenment, just as other civilizations have had their own version of enlightenment on the surface, gross level of just being us, right? The Renaissance, the Enlightenment. We have to hold on to that, or we'll go back to the Stone Age. And in some ways, yeah, we can argue going back to how our ancestors and the tribes and their wisdom that they have. might be a good thing. We're here. We're going forwards. I think, part of our evolution. So let's hold on to it and try to remember these things from the past, the wisdom. And if we can really tap into that primordial ancient, it seems ancient even though it just is, it's ever present in the now. So it's beyond time. But, this feeling of this ancient primal knowing of spirit, if we could start integrating that and assimilating that, which I think is kind of naturally, organically happening without even many knowing it. It'll be a better world, and then we can start mitigating the collateral damage. But it all starts with you. Starts from within before it can spread outwards. So, yeah, man. I think I'm done. Just be honest with yourself. Take your time. Surrender to the process. Try to alleviate your own collateral damage too. Stick with the basics. It's all encompassing. So, mind, body, spirit. Eat healthy, feel yourself, move, stretch, exercise, even if it's just some hiking and gardening, whatever. Stay grounded, connect to the simplicity that is spirit, to face the complexity of the world. You have to leave it up to weirdos like me that can't stop their mind from thinking to think about these things for you. Whatever. Alright, well, peace, love, namaste, all that jazz. Talk to you later.